welcome to the fourth floor. We're so excited today. We're going to be learning how to make a simple cheese plate from our friends at Belle Cheese. And so I'm just gonna let Aggie take it over. Go ahead, Aggie.
Cool. I'm Aggie. I own Belle Cheese, which until recently was brick and mortar and now is just me. I do catering and parties, although there's not a lot of that going on right at the moment, so we're having a virtual party. So I'm going to teach you a few basic things about how to build your own cheese plate, whether you're one person like myself or if you have like a family of 5 people at home. And then Sarah, at any point in time, we can have questions whenever you want to mute or unmute, and you guys can ask me questions. So what I think about when building a cheese plate, and really it's just for myself most of the time, unless I have friends over, really think about doing something special for yourself. It doesn't have to be super expensive cheese. Everything I have is obviously, I run an artisanal cheese shop, so is handmade. If you can do artisanal, try going that way. You support small farmers and producers and distributors. And frankly, the quality of the cheese you're getting is really, it's just on a different level than like, you know, supermarket block cheese. And you can actually find, you know, I think the best thing when buying cheese, especially if you aren't going to make your cheese board tonight, I don't know what town everybody is in, but there's a lot of artisanal cheese shops that are still open because they're under a grocery store and they really need business. And cheese makers are really suffering right now too, just like everybody with this whole epidemic. So if you can support that, you're supporting so many small businesses by just buying local or handmade cheese. It doesn't even have to be from your area. So I always think about a couple different things, and I think about what I want to eat because this is my cheese board, and I think about texture, and I think about mixing up the milks. So if you just feel like eating only cow's milk, or you have an intolerance, we can talk about that after if anybody has questions about lactose intolerance, intolerance to cheese in general. There's a lot of different things. I'm not going to get into all the semantics unless you guys have questions, but there's lots of ways around it where people who think they're lactose intolerant are actually not. So I'll show you the cheeses that I have today, and these are some of my favorites. This is actually a new one for me. It's in the vein of category. I'm going to lean down so you guys can see my head before. And when I cut, I guess it'll cut off the top of my head, but that's okay. So I like to do something soft, something kind of like semi-firm or like stinky or blue. I don't have any blue today. And then something hard. So for soft, and you guys might see my dog pop up because she's obsessed with cheese. This is actually almost like an overripe. I don't know if you can even see like how it's like ready, like it's gonna ooze when I open it. So I'm gonna do this one last actually. This is a camembert, but it's an Italian camembert. Camembert is traditionally French, but there's all different camembert style cheeses, American and other countries. This is a camembert style cheese, but it's a 3 milk cheese. So it's cow, sheep, and goat from Italy. It's made from one of my favorite producers. It's like kind of overripe. I actually picked it up this morning from one of my distributors, and he was like, technically it's out of date, but he was like, it was amazing. I ate one last night. So the big thing too, if you ever see, I'm not promoting eating anything old, but like if you ever see cheese that's like maybe past its best by or something, talk to your cheesemonger because that cheese is likely still fine. A good cheesemonger would never sell you something that is maybe, you know, is not going to taste good as opposed to like being overripe or underripe. Best by dates are estimations. They're not actual dates that things go bad, you know, and it's actually pretty easy to tell, like, especially if you're like, oh shit, I have a piece of cheese that's been in the back of my fridge for a month. Well, if it's like pretty young, meaning like a few weeks old, cheese might not taste so great. Also, people should know, this is gonna like collapse because it's so ripe. One thing about cheese is that don't be afraid of mold. If you see mold on cheese at home, especially if it's like a hard cheese like this, scrape it off. We have cheesemongers. What we do in the shop, you know, every day is we inspect the cheese and we face it. So like something I do with my cheese, and this is something you can do at home to really maintain the quality of your cheese. Ideally, you're not keeping it wrapped in plastic wrap. Cheese really needs to breathe, and it can't breathe through plastic wrap. So if you are keeping it in plastic wrap, like every couple days, just unwrap it, especially if you're eating it. Or if you forgot about it and like the whole side is riddled with mold, cut a little bit off, you know, just like a thin layer. If the mold has really permeated the whole cheese, you're kind of out of luck. But usually it's just on the surface, especially with a harder cheese. And something we do is we literally, I don't know if you guys can see this. Sarah, you tell me if I need to move too. Literally just doing that with like a nice sharp knife, you're facing the cheese and just taking off what's been exposed to plastic wrap. And it will dramatically change. There's a reason when you go to a good cheese shop and they give you a taste of cheese, you're like, oh, this is better than at home. Well, that's because they're facing it usually every day or every couple of days.
And Aggie, you don't have to cut it. You just scrape it.
Yeah, just scraping. Cut it only if you see mold. Like that's just like, I mean, even the other day I was cleaning out my fridge because I don't know, I guess I haven't done that in years. And I was like, oh yeah, I found this piece of cheese in the back of my fridge. And I was like, let me see, this has been here for a while. But it was also a super aged Parmesan. It was aged already over 24 months. And I looked at it and it didn't have any mold, and I scraped the surface on all the exposed parts and cut a piece, and I was like, I feel fine. I mean, it's like pretty hard to make yourself good cheese that you have in your house. So don't always throw it out. And if you have Parmesan at home, I have Parmesan in my fridge. I didn't put it on my cheese board today, but save your rinds and throw them into soup. So I just made like an awesome soup this weekend. I threw the rinds into the soup and it really changes the flavor. Okay, so let's go over the 3 cheeses I have today and then put together a quick cheese board and talk about accompaniments. And then we can open it up to questions there. Does that sound good? Cool.
Sounds great.
But okay, so the first cheese is Hallerhocker that I have for an Alpine cheese. People often ask, what's Alpine? It's literally cheeses that are made in the Alps. So it could be Germany, it could be France, like Comté or Gruyere. Those are very well-known traditional Alpine cheeses. They're always raw milk. If they're not raw milk, they're an Alpine style. I mean, not to get into the semantics, and we can totally nerd out about it if you want later, but you know, a lot of these cheeses, the European ones, that they're controlled. So they're AOC controlled, DOC controlled, depends what country they're in, but they have to be made with certain milk from certain types of cows in certain regions, very specific, and that really helps preserve the history of the cheese and the cheese maker. Hallerhocker is a newer cheese. It's one of my favorites. It's super oniony, and it's like probably the most assertive Alpine I used to keep in my shop. It's almost like beefy, if that makes sense. It's like a beefy, oniony, like French onion soup type cheese. They wash the outside, so the outside is sticky. You'll notice that with Alpine cheeses, like if you get Gruyere or Comté, the outside is often a little bit sticky. It helps develop the rind and the flavor. All raw cow's milk, really delicious. And so if I were to cut, you know, if I had a wedge like this at home and I wanted to cut, let me try to see, I'm left-handed, so this might not be the best for the screen. I would cut, I always cut from the back, but so you guys can see, because I don't want it to be an issue otherwise. You like to make it look, and look, it's your cheese board. You can do it however you want, but also like if I'm gonna hang out at home and drink wine and eat cheese, I don't know, it feels nice when it looks nice, even if it's just for me, you know? It's the same thing as like put like 5 minutes, obviously we're talking about it now, but in reality, this takes about 5 minutes of effort. And it really kind of changes, especially now when everyone's trying to keep their morale up. So you're gonna have rind on both sides when you cut off a wedge like that of any cheese. With a cheese like this, I don't eat the rind. You can, it's a little bit, the only rinds, and people always ask me in my shop, the only rinds that you literally cannot eat are wax, like on a Gouda, or cloth, like on a traditional cloth-bound cheddar, because you're gonna have digestion issues. Otherwise, I could eat this. I don't really want to. It's not that tasty, but it's incredible for the cheese. On soft cheeses, you 100% should always eat the rind, unless, you know, the cheese is off and then you shouldn't have bought that cheese. So I cut the rind off on the side. And if I was cutting for a group of people, like if there were even 2 or 3 of us, I would cut the rind off on both sides, but I know I'm not gonna finish it. So why expose the other side to air? It helps the cheese, just, again, you wanna maintain freshness. And then I'm just gonna cut little triangles like this. And it's really, how thick do you wanna eat it? I usually like when I do it, I think about, and when I do a large cheese board, but even when I do it just for myself, I think about that particular cheese and kind of how I wanna eat it. and the texture of the cheese. This one I might cut a little bit thinner. These are about a 1/2 inch each. And you can fan them out. I mean, literally, this is only me, so I'm only gonna cut a couple pieces. So that's Holler Hawker. Put that guy aside. And then this is, now ideally, I'm not gonna do it right now. Wipe your knife off in between. It's just, especially if you're like dealing with stinky cheeses or blue cheese, or just use a second knife. Because otherwise you really are just going to cross-contaminate. It doesn't matter, it's all going to the same place, you tell me anyway, but in terms of, you know, if you're not eating those cheeses quickly, it can also just change. You can have different molds develop on the cheese. It's just going to change the quality of it. So this is one of my favorites. Do you ever see any of these cheeses? They're from Capriole Dairy in Indiana. This is one of the original like pioneers in the cheese making industry. She does only goat's milk. It's a female cheesemaker, Judy Shad. She's amazing. And this is pretty unusual. So she does a goat's milk cheese. I have a real soft spot towards goat's milk cheeses in general, particularly like French Loire Valley cheeses. But her cheeses are just exceptional. They are expensive, but they are well worth it. This was the cheese that was a mistake that they then turned into this cheese called Juliana. And it's a goat's milk cheese that they actually aged about 4 to 6 months, which is quite unusual. That it's, it looks like it's young and like really supple, but it has like a firmness to it. And then she covers the outside, I don't know if you can see it, with edible herbs and wildflowers and calendula. It's like really fragrant. So a cheese like this, I bought 1/2 wheel for myself, and it also lasts a while. I would just cut wedges, and it's really beautiful. I mean, it literally, the flowers cover all sides. I would just cut, like for myself, 2 little wedges and lay them like that so they look pretty, and done. And then I'm gonna cut that camembert last just because it's really gonna, I have a feeling it's gonna be messy. In terms of, let me talk before I talk about accompaniments. In terms of goat cheese, I know there's some people, I don't know if anyone in this group is like, you know, one of the most common answers I would get would be like, I don't like goat cheese. And people are often only thinking about just like young goat that they would have on a salad in a restaurant. And young, like chev, it's pretty assertive. There are so many goat cheese out there that are delicate and mild, and they're not really goaty and barnyardy. So you should really like, that's also the benefit of going to an artisanal cheese shop, because they can really tell you about the cheese. You can taste certain cheeses, and it can open your, you know, I used to have a customer that refused to eat goat cheese, and finally one day I was like, here, try this, you'll like it. She was like, is it cow? I'm like, uh-huh. And it wasn't, it was goat. Like I knew she wasn't allergic. She just wasn't open, but she was like, I love this. I'm like, there you go, it's a goat cheese. You know what I mean? You just have to open yourself up. So in terms of accompaniments, again, I also think about what cheeses am I eating and what do I have in the house? So like right now, I have a million jams and things left over from the store, but I'm not gonna open them unless I wanna eat it. I have one jam that I love that's a Santa Rosa plum and flowering thyme. And I have an apricot too, but I took this one out because this is gonna be amazing with this cheese to pair with that goat. It already has herbs on the outside. So I like to build a cheese plate that has things that are sweet on it and savory. So, you know, if you have like little cups, great. If you don't, you know, that's fine too. I'm not doing any of that. You just put a dollop of that on. Crackers, whatever crackers float your boat. I will say it is, if you can afford it, it is well worth the expense to spend money on good crackers and good cheese. And I always tell people I'd rather have you buy cheese less often and in smaller amounts than just, you'll eat less. You know, people think cheese is really fattening. It's really no more fattening than anything else. It's, I don't believe in low fat cheese. Ask any cheesemonger and they will tell you the same thing. It's really satisfying when you eat something that's really good. It's like eating a really good steak. If you eat meat, you're only gonna eat a few ounces of it as opposed to like eating a giant piece of meat. Good crackers really can make the difference, or like great bread. Toasted, untoasted, doesn't matter. It's your, whatever you prefer. So these crackers are, what did I open today? This is a brand I love. They're called Toast for Cheese. These are cherry, almond, and seeded crackers. And they hold up well. Some people like, you know, like paper thin crackers. Some people don't. I personally like a thicker cracker just for heft, but you know, I had a cracker at the store that everybody loved that was paper thin, that was a cranberry pistachio, and people went nuts over it. So it's, again, it's your oyster. I had some dried apricots, apricots in the house, which is also why I did not pick the apricot jam, because I figured this. And then I had a radish, which I know sounds weird, but that is going to taste freaking delicious with my Hollerhocker cheese. So I'm gonna do this little guy over here. And then I wanted something salty and crunchy. So the only nuts I had in my house were salted roasted cashews, so that'll do. Because I'm not gonna go out and buy other stuff right now, just for me. So I do a little handful of those. And then I have these guys, if you ever see them, they're called Kikos. They look like this. I don't know if you can see them. They basically look like corn nuts, and they are, but they're a different variety than what you get like, I don't know, at like a baseball game. They're giant Spanish corn nuts. They're really delicious. They go fantastic on cheese boards, or you just eat a million of them. And then what else am I gonna do? Oh, and then I'm gonna open up this guy. So if I was doing this in the store, I would cut it with a wire, but I'm pretty sure none of you have wires at home unless you're a super cheese nerd. So I'm not gonna do that. Let me just show you how ridiculously ripe this is. It's like literally oozing everywhere. So I would just cut with something like that. When you get a piece of cheese that's this ripe, put that guy there. Woo. Just cut a wedge. Don't even try to make it beautiful, or don't like try to mutilate it by cutting up different. Put a wedge and go for it. So good. Nobody saw that. And that's it. I'm gonna actually wrap this up, otherwise it's gonna bleed everywhere and ooze. And then I guess we can have questions if you guys, and pour yourself a glass of whatever you want. That's my number one thing.
Aggie, as you wrap that up, I love that you just used what was in your house, and you have way better things that is in your house than I would have in my house. I just want to point out, everyone is nodding. I do not have those corn nut things. I have never bought a radish.
You do not need to have that. You've never bought, well, if I had a cucumber, I would put a sliced cucumber on there. Maybe some carrots. You know, people want to tell me what they have in their house. I can tell them that. If you have questions about cheese.
Does anyone have any cheese-related questions for Aggie? You can either put it in chat if you are uncomfortable asking it directly to Aggie, or go for it. Ask Aggie your questions.
Okay. I have a question.
Go.
So if you don't wrap your cheese in plastic wrap, what should you wrap it in?
Yeah. Well, if the only thing you have at home is plastic wrap, go for plastic wrap, right? And just check on your cheese. Like, it's not, you know, if you're eating it quickly, it's not going to matter. But like, if you're not eating, you know, if you buy cheese to eat on Friday and you're not going to eat it again till the following weekend, you know, once or twice during the week, take it, unwrap it, and rewrap it again. You know, okay. If you were buying it from a cheese shop, most cheese shops will sell it to you in cheese paper. Like we have, I don't have any right now, but we have cheese paper that we'd always wrap all our cheese in. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that cheese paper helps the cheese breathe, especially formatted. It has like tiny little, they're basically 2-ply, and they have tiny little perforations, and it naturally helps the cheese breathe. And we always tell our customers, rewrap it in that paper if you can. I just bought this stuff actually, which I'm really into. I would never wrap a soft cheese in it, but I don't know if any of you guys have used this, but
yeah,
what's it called? Bees wrap, and it like sticks on itself. I bought it online, and it's great because you don't have to use plastic wrap, and you can wrap anything in it, like sandwiches, vegetables.
Okay, yeah, I have that at home. I was wondering if I could use it.
Yeah, okay. I totally would use it. I use it. That's what I have the Hollerhocker, the hard one, wrapped in. I would say the only thing, never wrap it in foil. Like foil is just not going to be good for cheese. I would rather have you put it in, like what do I do with it? Oh, this one, because it's so oozy, I put it in a Tupperware. It can breathe this way. I'll open it up. I can take it out. I don't have any cheese paper on hand right now. So yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we all go run over to Aggie's place and break all the social distancing rules and eat all her cheese? Thank you so much for coming, Aggie, for all of your, you're already digging in. You got to dig in, girl.
I mean, look at that. Come on. Sorry, guys.
Perfect. I have a question. Sorry. Do you have a website? Are you taking orders still, or how are you managing in the crisis?
I'm not, but I'm directing. If you live in New York or somewhere else?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I'm directing people to a small distributor, and I can get you that info, but it's called Chef's Collective. They're actually swamped at the moment, but they will be taking orders for next week. They're amazing. This is actually where I got my cheese from, and they're a small family-run company. But otherwise, you know, depending what neighborhood you're in, there's probably a cheese shop that's open in your neighborhood. And if you can go, and a lot of them just for their own safety reasons are doing like online orders, and then they'll bring it out to you for like contactless delivery. I mean, it's not the best, this is not the best time right now in the world to be like shopping the way we all want to shop, you know, and interacting with people. But yeah, there's lots of options otherwise for delivery.
Thank you so much, Aggie.
Thanks, Sarah.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks,
And thank you
guys.
everyone for joining us for our cheese lesson. Thanks.
Yeah.